Who was the dumbest person you ever met? How did you know? Half of my science class thought that the International Space Station was just some building on the ground. A girl in my class in middle school genuinely thought people had landed on the sun. Her explanation for this belief was to insist that the moon and sun are made of the same stuff. I had a boss who told me that she never kept leftovers from a meal because that's how polio got started. My ex-sister-in-law is hands down the dumbest person I've ever encountered. There's literally a plethora of fucking insanely stupid things she's said over the years, but I'll use the one that almost made me slap the taste out of her mouth. I had my first son back in 2001, and while I was pregnant she asked me if I was going to breastfeed, to which I replied that I was. She then asked even if it's a girl and I said of course. She then proceeded to tell me that it's perfectly fine to breastfeed boys but doing so with girls is creepy and could make the child a lesbian, because they get the feel of a breast and will remember it and want that sexually. To say that I was stunned by her thought process is an understatement. I asked her what she thought people did before formula was invented and she said cow's milk, and before bottles were invented it was a rag soaked in cow's milk. Side note, she had 3 daughters and wouldn't allow her husband to change their diapers or bathe them. Few years ago in Australia, Coke changed their bottle to be a bit narrower and taller to sew less plastic. Both bottles were 600 milliliters. Girl in my class at uni adamant that the change wasn't to reduce plastic but so they could put less Coke in to save money. I know they are both 600 milliliters, but the new one has less Coke in it. He had just purchased a new, high-powered BB gun. We had just finished shooting it in the backyard when he points the barrel at my face and pulls the trigger several times. I tell him to stop being an idiot and he just laughs and says it's not loaded. Then the moron puts the barrel in his mouth and shoots a BB right through his tongue and into his uvula. Edit for those asking why it shot him and not me. I was sitting down so the end of the barrel was at a downward angle. When Genius shot himself, the barrel was at an upward angle, causing the last BB to roll down to the back of the ammo tube and into the chamber. A friend that told me that drinking protein shakes means that my muscles are all fake and fat. A girl in my art class in high school thought there was just a part of the cow called meat. When we explained meat is the muscles, she freaked out and became vegetarian. There was a guy who made a fun of me because I was a pedestrian waiting a green light. They referred to a spork as the devil's utensil and said it was trying to blur gender lines in society by combining the feminine spoon and the masculine fork. A girl at my high school didn't know you could get pregnant from cum. One time my now ex-girlfriend was watching Maury Povich, one of those paternity test episodes with the classic "you are not the father" moment, and she turns to me and says, "If we ever have a baby and I found out I'm not the mother, I'll kill you." Thankfully we didn't end up reproducing. I know a guy who thinks the special tea he drinks negates the negative health effects of his pack-a-day smoking habit. I know a guy who vaped mercury on a dare. We hired a girl a couple years ago. I told her where the manager's office was her first day. Second day, she asked me where the manager's office was, so I walked her to the door. Third day, she asks me where it is again. Our manager chewed out the girl who trained our new recruit for not teaching the job properly. The trainer pulled out her phone and showed the manager a picture of the girl wearing the uniform backwards and said, "Look at this. This is untrainable." New girl got fired about 3 weeks later for stealing the product because she thought she got it for free because she was an employee. Girl in my class asked the professor if other countries have moons, too. I asked a temp at work to weigh a couple of lever arch files for postage. She came back and told me they were 65 kilograms. I asked if it were possible that it was 6.5 kilograms, but she insisted it wasn't. We argued about it for a good 5 minutes. It wasn't until I asked her how much she weighed, 59 kg, that did finally twig that these two small folders couldn't possibly weigh more than her. A friend of mine still thinks cancer is made up by Big Pharma. When I was in the Air Force, I was the lead trainer certifier in my unit. When a new person would show up, I'd watch them do the job, answer any out of the ordinary questions, etc., and when I felt they were ready, I'd sign off saying they were qualified. This all happened after they finished a 6-week school learning the job. The 73 troops I trained took on average 3 days to complete this phase. Then there was that one guy. I took him under my wing, non-stop for an entire month. He'd mess something up one day and we'd correct it. No big deal. The next, he'd get it right, but get something else wrong. Then on the following day, mess up on the first thing we had corrected. Bear in mind that he has a step-by-step checklist in his hand that lists everything to do and in what order to do it. After a month of this, I figured there was nothing I could do for him. Maybe it was my teaching method. So I handed him over to my supervisor. They spent another 3 weeks together until he was finally certified. A month and a half to learn what should have taken 3 days. Personally, I really liked the guy. Had a good heart. Didn't give up after the setbacks. And probably the funniest non-comedian I've ever met. He was just a bit dense when it came to the job. The job was refueling jets, which is really about 2 degrees harder than filling your car. A chimp could do it and probably learn in less time. Miss your buddy, hope you're still doing well. I was working retail at the time, and this lady walks in and asks me to tell her when it is 10:15 AM. She needs to catch a bus. We were slow, so I obliged. 10:15 AM rolls around and I tell her, so she drops her stuff and runs out to get the bus. 5 minutes later she comes back, it's scowling, and she then lectures me on how to tell time. How much is a quarter? 25 cents. So why would you tell me a quarter after 10 or is 10:15 A? It's 10:25 AM. Was working at a grocery store over a decade ago. I wouldn't call the kid dumb, because he just didn't know. It's more of a funny thing. He was new and the manager asked him to face the store when he asked what he could do. Facing means you make sure the aisles look nice and neat and that the product is pulled forward and visibly facing you as you walk down the aisle. The kid couldn't be found until someone told the manager one of the workers was just standing in the parking lot facing the store. I will never forget that. Had a girl tell me she was scared to give her black boyfriend a blowjob because I don't know if his cum would be white or black. That was definitely the moment I knew. She had a mug from Disneyland with the name Ronald on it. She thought you just picked a mug of the name you like and not your actual fucking name. A girl in my sophomore year of high school who thought there were 6 months in a year. She was really nice, but very surprised and confused when we tried to set her right. Edit. For those asking which months she would have included in her version of a year, I don't think she thought that far ahead. I had a guy at work tell me that Benjamin Franklin was the 100th president because he's on the $100 bill. I currently work with this person. Didn't know detergent existed other than Tide. Was washing her clothes with Downy and was wondering why stains weren't coming out. Made a legal right turn from left lane in front of 2 different co-workers at different times. At the age of 20 had already totaled 7 cars. Got customer complaints that she was constantly on phone and tried to hide it when manager was near. Left a nasty lint roller on the counter covered in fake hair. I hate fish. I've never had fish other than fish sticks. Asked how old I am. The next day asked if I was alive in the 90s. Doesn't know own address or what city she lives in. Didn't believe me that California has snow. Described how she made tacos once and she put water in it and it turned into meat soup. Customer said they lived in the boondocks. She handed a post-it to co-worker that said, why do people here live in the boombox? Australia is part of the United States. She got that and Alaska confused somehow. Thought Haitian was half Asian, half black. Co-worker brought in a cake and he told new girl he made it. She believed him despite the price tag and retail packaging. These are all things she's said to me or within earshot of me. I wish I were making this up. She thought I was trying to trick her into believing that Adolf Hitler was real. My former boss was worried that the island of Manhattan would sink with all the extra visitors for New Year's and the ball dropping. She thought islands float, and when she found out that wasn't true she thought it was so funny that she told everyone the story. She was later fired for withholding a pay raise from someone on her team because he didn't accept her sexual advances. He had the texts to prove it. I went to school with a girl that legitimately thought 9/11 was done by German Nazis. Someone asked me if Japanese was a real language in high school, twice. I used to work with the nicest person I've ever met. but he was also the dumbest. Even though he had been there over a year, he couldn't do anything beside washing dishes without someone watching over him. He just could not figure out how to do anything on his own. Someone, usually me, would have to watch over every little thing he did to make sure he was doing it right. It would have been frustrating if he wasn't the nicest damn person on earth. He was always so happy to see you and did everything with a smile on his face. Luckily he could wash dishes like a fucking beast. I'm not exaggerating when I say he could wash dishes faster and cleaner than anyone I have ever met. That's the reason he would do other stuff, is because he washed dishes so damn fast we'd have to find other stuff for him to do. His wife was normal and all his kids were doctors or engineers. They were all crazy smart. What was kind of sad is that he knew he wasn't the smartest, but he was so damn nice. My sister-in-law is an anti-vaxxer and believes her kid's cerebral palsy was caused by vaccines, despite the kid being born with 1/4 of her brain physically missing.